Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking, there's a lot that has been said about mudslinging, in particular with regard to the upcoming polls. We'll be talking about how and what is true when we talk about this kind of mudslinging that is consistently coming from one particular political party. We'll also be talking about how much truth there is in these kind of allegations that have come forward as far as the acceptance of nomination papers are concerned, as far as the overall electoral process is concerned, when we look at from the start of the nominations and then acceptance of these papers, the scrutiny of them, and the appellate process that is to a large extent having been completed and a little bit of which is left. What are the statistics that show if there is actual level playing field for all political parties or not? All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Faraz Ali Khan, who's an analyst. Thank you so much for being with us. We also have other guests that are introduced during the course of the program. Faraz, like I said, there is a lot that is being said since the elections were announced. We've been hearing a lot about level playing field. We've been hearing about, with regard to one particular political party. And when we look at the allegations that are made, how are you looking at them? Is it just rhetoric? How much of it is actual reality when we look at the situation on the ground? Because we have to be able to differentiate it from a political party whose chairman is not here. I mean, of course, he's in jail at this time and he's facing the law on a number of cases. The question is it about a disarray or a certain fragmentation or a certain disorganization because the chairman himself, in a large extent, large part of the political party is facing the law because of events that happened not too long ago? Or is there reality to there not being a level playing field?
Thank you, Marukh, for having me on your show. Marukh, first of all, what I would like to start with is, what is level playing field? Unfortunately, in Pakistan, every political party has their own definition for level playing field. If you look at any political party, they would come up with their own definition. With PTI, it's a bit unfortunate, but PTI has been a bit of a crybaby lately. There would be something very small and they would make a mountain out of a mole. With statistics and the things that you have mentioned earlier, if you look at the ground realities, the level playing field, according to what PTI wants, is something that favors them. Unfortunately, maybe they have developed habits over time where they would cry and they would get a leverage over certain things, which they're not getting now. So if you ask me for a level playing field, I think this time it seems like there's more level playing field in the ground reality than we had experienced in Pakistan previously.
What about the nomination? I mean, the process in the polls at this time, when we look at it from the start to finish, whether we look at the acceptance of nomination papers, whether we look at the scrutiny of them and the appeals of them. If we look at it, the numbers, and at this time a record number of the appeals as far as the PTI candidates are concerned have been accepted. Isn't that true?
Yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, somehow the whole system for nomination papers being filed, being scrutinized by the ROs, and then going into appeal, this is a system that the normal layman needs to understand. And unfortunately, people are playing around with it on social media. So there's a process where you need to go and file your nomination paper, and interestingly, an RO would reject them for meager things such as covering letter, tax returns not filed, bank statements not shown. So I would like to share a few stats with you. In 2008, interestingly, Imran Khan's PTI chairman's paper were rejected from Miawali. Nobody bat an eye at that time. Farooq Sattar's nomination papers were rejected by the RO from Karachi.
Because it's
Khaqan Abbasi's paper rejected.
Because overall, it's a process, and that process has an appeal, and
Exactly.
Of course, you can then provide those documents, or that's the first tier, so to speak, of the process. But let me come back to you. We also have with us Zahid Ghiskori Saab, who is a senior journalist. Zahid Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, Marukh.
Zahid Saab, when we look at the statistics at this time, particularly let's talk about the nomination papers. Isn't it true that a record number of nomination papers of the PTI candidates have in fact been accepted?
Marukh, is quite tricky. The campaigns and the otherwise uh, uh, whatever protest on social media, facts are quite different on this ongoing 2024 elections. Number one, when you focused on PTI, this time in the recent history of Pakistan from 1988 to 2024, the nomination papers were more than 800, 626, which is the maximum number in the recent history of Pakistan elections. Uh, it means that uh, the nomination paper rejection ratio overall is 3% less than the previous elections. Uh, in other terms, the rejection ratio in the previous three elections in 1990, in 1997, and in 2013, if you look into it, then this ratio is quite less. But I understand for any political party, if the nomination papers of any party, even more than 3% or 4% rejected, it means that the party is losing its top tier or second tier leadership. And in case of PTI, if you see that around 1076 rejected nomination papers indicated that these candidates were backed up by political parties, 16 political parties of Pakistan. And so far, Election Commission of Pakistan released through sources a data of PTI that it looks like that 79% PTI nomination papers were accepted, 21% and 22%
Which
were
is
rejected. But as reports are coming out that 85% nomination papers are being accepted by the tribunal, and which ratio is quite high in the history. If you see that from 1988 to 2024, the candidate whose nomination paper were rejected, 69% went into tribunal against acceptance or rejections, and the change of decision against the returning officer orders or rejections is only 35%. So it means, and maximum nomination papers were filed, and nomination papers were rejected as well. But the trend shows us that these time the rejection objections were quite on the technical ground might be, and that's why the decision changing ratio is quite high as compared to the previous
right.
election. But yes, still we can't say ultimate things about PTI, but one thing is clear. Obviously, the party top tier leadership might not be able to contest the election, but by and large, even look, the one example of a PTI important candidate, Zulfikar
Zahid Sab,
Bukhari.
let me come back to you. When you say the top tier leadership, is it because of the process as far as the legal process is concerned, the cases that are already, in process as to these candidates? I want to take Dr. Niaz Murtaza on this. Niaz Sab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sab, when we talk about the top tier leadership of any political party and the fact that their their candidature or their nomination papers have been accepted or not, isn't it in the background there are also these plethora of cases that are in process. There is that investigation that is in process, and a lot of the major leadership of the PTI is embroiled in these cases, and there are the events of 9th May also. So in that sense, is it fair to say today that there is no level playing field?
Well, the thing is that until and unless a person gets convicted, they cannot be stopped from taking part in the election. So, if there are cases going on, if there are investigations going on, that is not sufficient reason to reject their papers. It has to be a conviction, or you have to be a defaulter on loans, on your utility bills, etc. So that's the kind of thing you need to see. And the rejection or acceptance of nomination papers, that is just one part of the total picture of about the level playing field. I think the bigger issue is, the number of top leaders who've been forced to, leave the PTI, the number of people, leaders who've been put in jail, who've been forced to flee. So if you take a look at that,
Niaz, when we talk about, for example, let's look at what happened, what has happened till now as far as the symbol is concerned. First there was this, we saw this has proceeded in stages of, of course, the legal process. We saw what happened as far as, the bat issue and the symbol of the bat, and in the first year the election commission prevailed, and then of course we saw what the Peshawar High Court said, and later what it has said as far as the bat symbol is concerned. As I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the PTI is now in the Superior Court as far as Supreme Court is concerned on this issue. So every time there is a judgment that is against PTI, it invariably, is the same, mantra of there not being a level playing field. And then when it happens the other way, there is, of course, a lot said in favor of the same judiciary that is, said that, they're partisan or they're not fair and all of that. So isn't this part of that same old rhetoric that we've been hearing for a while? And to what extent?
You said that it has, the reputation of being a crybaby, and that's true. It's a crybaby that's cried wolf too many times in the past, and it's happening exactly the same way as it happened to that baby. That there was no wolf initially for several times, but now that there is a wolf, nobody is believing it when it's crying wolf again, even though there is a wolf. And as I said, the bigger issue is the number of leaders who've just been put in jail without conviction. Now look at Imran Khan. He's been released on bail in the case that he was convicted in, which is the Tosha Khana case, but now he's in jail for a case for which he hasn't been convicted. So why is he being kept in jail? I mean, how much time do you need to question him, interrogate him, get whatever information out of him? Now, yeah.
But isn't this part of the judicial process that is underway as far as these cases are concerned? And I'm going to go to Faraz Sahib here. Faraz Sahib, isn't it true that when we talk about other leaders in the past, we talk about other political parties, it's been more or less when there have been cases against them, when they've been facing these issues, have they also not been this is the part of that same system? Have they not been again victims of the way that our judicial system is structured? And of course it has a lot of flaws and it has a lot of issues within itself. And we have of course seen for a time that all political parties have said that they want to reform the judicial system, PTI included, and the former chairman of course having said this on a number of occasions. But it hasn't ever happened. So those flaws exist for them, and they exist for the leadership of the PTI now also.
If the different political parties in history have been victimized, that's bad. The point is, what is happening right now? Well, as Zahid Saab said, that he's still in jail and all of this. Well, there are 200 different cases. According to the legal structure that we follow in Pakistan, if you are nominated in FIR anywhere in Pakistan, you cannot get out of the court until and unless that FIR has been set aside. So there's a long time, I would say, that he will be in jail to get rid of all those 200 FIRs. And this is how it is done with everyone. He's not an exception. This is how everyone faces.
But isn't he? Isn't he an exception? Isn't our leaders, perhaps, it is constructed in such a manner that there should be an exception? Is that what the issue is? Let me go to Zahid Saab on this. Zahid Saab, when, for people who are at the behest of the legal system, those people who are facing the law and are not political, are not, for normal people, the man on the street, you and I, let's talk about that. There are so many loopholes, there are so many lacunas, there are so many issues with the legal system that those people face every day. And when we look at the leadership and we talk about level playing field, we talk about the fact, why are they in jail? Why is an issue with regard to FIRs? Why are they not being, letting them investigate? Why are the bails not going through? Are these not the issues for the normal person who is facing cases similarly in courts? Zahid Saab?
It's true. It's true. Obviously, all those in the jails have equal right to plead their cases. It doesn't matter, but more than 2.2 million cases are pending with different courts in Pakistan. And can you imagine that one person, if you get the relief from the court at 11 p.m., as we have seen this week from Peshawar High Court, that PTI, a senior female leader, Rataj Gul, got the bail. So sometimes courts provide the relief. It looks like that it is selective, and the perception is quite bad. But when it comes to the person having public office once and being in the jail, as Imran Khan is, if you look into the past, recent past, that more than 45 public office holders have been in the jail, and NAB put them in the jail more than 5,100 days without having conviction.
Zahid Saab, it's not very long ago then when we saw MNAs being brought to the National Assembly because they were, on the production orders by the Speaker of the National Assembly, of the assemblies generally. So that time is not long ago gone. As far as for example, as far as the PMLN is concerned, if we look at, the recent history, we've seen, them, Mia Saab himself, or, if you talk about his family, we talk about, for them coming to court, the PMLN leaders themselves, their own, MNAs even being pushed aside, being treated very shabbily by those same officials in court. But isn't it true that the kind of the allegations that are being created, the kind of overall atmosphere that is being created is already making the whole process itself controversial? Isn't that detrimental to democracy itself?
Obviously, it is, and we have seen many women having public office, being in the jail, like Priyal Talpur, Maryam Nawaz Sharif, and now Yasmin Rashid, and many other women, even in the 9th May episode. And it's very sad in the recent history I'm following since 2008 that it's happening, and democracy is not getting any progress in the country. And right now, perhaps 2024, what happened in the Senate of Pakistan yesterday. And still, the three major political parties having huge stakes in the election, they are happy to be holding election on 8th February 2024. But what happened in the Senate of Pakistan, was there any need of such a resolution getting passed almost unanimously from the Senate of Pakistan, where only 13 members of parliament were over there? And I think it's not. But the system, the institution, and the major political parties and all the stakeholders should at least plead the case that the election should be held in time.
We are at right now. I want to take everyone on board. Zahid Saab, I want to take everyone on board, as far as this issue is concerned. I'll come back to Faraz Saab also. Niaz Saab, we are right now at a point in time where we are looking at the fact that whether, elections are going to happen or not, being made something, there is this whole air of again, uncertainty, which is being, fostered, so to speak, when we talk about whether elections are actually going to go forward or not, whether we talk about they're going to be fair or not, whether we talk about there is level playing field or not. The question is, Do you think that our political parties, our political leaders are going to rise above this to understand that for a country like us, with the economic cost that we are facing every day, we have to rise beyond these. We have to rise beyond what is suitable for me and what is suitable for you to what is suitable for the country at this time. The kind of certainty we need to perhaps, get back on our feet economically. Those are important issues, are they not? Niaz Saab?
Yeah, it's true that our politicians don't really rise above their petty interests. So in 2018, PTI was quite enjoying the bad treatment that PMLN was getting, and the same thing was happening to the PMLN. Its leaders being sent to jail, being convicted on dubious cases. And now it's the reverse. It's the PTI that is at the receiving end, and PMLN is enjoying itself. And it's quite satisfied with the fact that there is no level playing field for PTI and PPP somewhere in the middle. But the good thing is that after yesterday's resolution, I think almost every large party, at least the three major parties, have all given statements that they are in favor of elections being held on February 8th. And I think there's a counter resolution that has now been submitted in the Senate by the JI calling for elections.
But what does this expose itself? Faraz Saab, does it not expose the problems within our system? I mean, we all agree that the leaders of this country should be treated with respect. We all agree that, the people who walk into the parliament should have some respect, and whether they are today in parliament and were there yesterday should not be, that should not be important to the kind of decency or decorum or whatever with which we treat them. We also agree that the law has to take its course. But the question is, who is going to change things? The question is, was it different yesterday than from what it is today? And if it is so unacceptable, what is happening today, then perhaps, what happened yesterday should have been as unacceptable at the time. Isn't that true?
Well, just to start with, unfortunately, our society is, we belong to a society where we worship personalities. We don't worship ideas. We don't worship rule and law. The problem with this situation is worshipping personalities. So that's why when it happens to someone that I love, I feel it more. And when it happens to someone I don't like much, I enjoy it.
But it should be about what's happening to the country.
Definitely. So we need to evolve as a society and come up from worshipping personalities to something that we follow law and rules and regulations. With changing the system, I was very happy when I heard Nawaz Sharif Saab saying when he came out of jail, and he said, my time spent in jail, I have learned a lot about the legal system and I would want to change it. Unfortunately, our parliamentarians at that time, sitting over there with PTI and the government in charge, they were not very much in favor of changing the law. So I hope now when their own leaders have gone through the whole process, they come out, they would understand.
They would want to change things.
Yeah, I think they would want to change things.
Because the flaws, the question is the flaws within the legal system, whether it is partisan, whether it is, it victimizes the accused, all of those are already there. But the question is, how do we change it so that it's not, nobody is at the behest of this kind of misuse within our legal system. So we need to target those areas.
As far as resolution from the Senate is concerned, I just want to add one thing to it. First of all, it was not by the majority. It was just by a few handful of individuals who are who don't belong to a party. The three senators who were there from PMLN, Afnan Saab, then we had from PTI, and then we had a Senator Tangi Saab from PPP. All of them condemned it. So just keep in mind that it's not something unanimous.
And we've had a statement from all political parties.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had a statement from the Minister Saab as well, Solanki Saab, it's not happening. The elections are there, they're intact. The only thing is, chaos provides a ladder. And at times people want to climb that ladder and go to people who they want. They be liked by the people they want. So I think certain people see it as an opportunity to go up the ladder. And this resolution is nothing more than that.
Chaos, I think that's an interesting word. I want to take Zahid Saab's opinion on this. Zahid Saab, chaos is something that we've seen in the past. I don't know. I mean, I want your opinion on this. the cost of this chaos, when we talk about conspiracies in the past also, when we perpetuate conspiracy theories, the cost is invariably to the country. Isn't that true? Zahid Saab?
If you remember, Marukh, on your program since 2017, we have been discussing this chaos, uncertainty, clouds hovering over the democracy, our democratic system, our pre-poll rigging and political engineering in the country. We have discussed at a broader level in 2018 election as well. But this time, things are quite different because in the past 3 years, what happened to the country economy and who is responsible for this? And obviously, one can say the political parties who rule this country, and first happened to PTI. We have seen this. The party failed to deliver in 3.5 years, and then this legacy and the all challenges, obviously owned by PDM government, and but unfortunately they continue to blame one another, and ultimately the state suffered. This time, uncertainty. We have 30. If you see that we have 31 days to go, and people of Pakistan are expecting this time election be held, and more than 120 million people will express their right to vote in the country. First time ever. 91,000 polling stations, and 59% are sensitive. 17,000 out of 91,000 have been declared very sensitive. It means that.
Isn't it true that in terms of what's happening at this time, if we talk about misinformation, isn't it more than it was in the last elections as far as misinformation is concerned, as far as foistering this air of uncertainty, chaos is concerned? How are you, what do you predict in terms of, we are 30 days away, like you said, some 30 something days away from the day.
Misinformation have been a problem everywhere in the world, and such mega events, particularly the election, we have seen in US as well. It has been a tool, and we as a journalist or analysts even on this national TV, in this program, that we are trying to figure out the truth in lies of oceans, even deeper than that. And it's our responsibility to tell the people that what's going on, what is the truth, and political parties are part of this. Unfortunately, I'm not saying all this, but some of them are participating and adding this fuel to the already what's going on social media, that it is generally known that PTI is an expert in that.
There's also,
we have seen that
there's clearly a code of conduct in place, at this time, as far as the Election Commission is concerned. But when we talk about a conduct, political conduct, so to speak, do you think that, I'm going to go to Niaz Saab. Niaz Saab, perhaps this is too bookish, in this, when I say this, but don't you think perhaps we need to move towards a conduct of political conduct, a charter on that also, that perhaps, political parties can agree on, so that, it doesn't cost the state what it has cost?
Well, yeah, we did have that Charter of Democracy in 2006, 2007, PMLN and PPP, after being in the wilderness for 7 or 8 years under Musharraf, did sign it. And things were not ideal, but if I compare the 1990s with the era of 2008 to 2018, I think the 2008 to 2018 era was much better than 1990s, and even the post 2018 era, which I think is the worst. It's worse than even 1990s now, even though we haven't even completed 10 years yet. So yes, there was some semblance of
there was
really
gone back.
Yeah, I think we've gone back to the 1990s and even worse than that. 2008 and 2018 was slightly better. So I think all the three parties after the election should look into these factors. How much, they want to make politics so cutthroat. They should come up with, some semblance of, decency, code of conduct, and revisiting, the Charter of Democracy with a three-way charter now, PPP, PML, and PTI. I think that would be really good for the politics of Pakistan and the health of democracy in
Yeah,
Pakistan.
sir, before I go to Faraz Sahab here, there's a recent article also that the former Prime Minister, that has been published. And there's a lot that has been said in that article. How do you look at this particularly and the effects that this will have for Pakistan?
Well, I mean, these things, I know a lot of, PMLN people are criticizing why, this article got published. But the thing is, there were similar charges by PTI when, the speeches of Nawaz Sharif were aired when he was sitting in London. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see anything wrong with that. He's a leader, he's a top leader. And if, his
But the
word
views
gets out.
expressed in the article, how would you credit them?
Sorry?
The views expressed in the article itself, are they not, contradictory to what has
Some
been?
of it are, like he's
Yes.
repeating, the Cipher conspiracy theory of which I see no evidence. But then the other thing that there is no level playing field, I largely agree with that, the PTI is not being afforded a level
But
playing
Niaz Sahab,
field.
when we say that there is no proof, for example, of something, I'm going to take Faraz Sahab on this also. Faraz Sahab, when we say there's no proof of the Cipher conspiracy, and when we are looking at articles that are being written in publications like the one we've seen, isn't it true that, that they're going to have an effect on the state politics, are they not?
Well, let me be very fair about it. First of all, that article in Economist, it has nothing new in it. This has been repeatedly said over and over again. So anything that makes rounds is effective only if it has something new. It's all those allegations that has been heard by the international media through different channels and different things. As far as Cipher is concerned, yes, that's wrong. It should not have been dealt with again. And I had thought that over a period of time, staying over there, looking at things, getting time to look at things from a different perspective by the PTI chairman, ex-chairman, he might have grown up a bit. But unfortunately, it looks like he's still stuck in Cipher and conspiracy and everything. I think it's time he needs to move on with it.
And of course, Zahid Sahab, when we say that, you throw the state under the bus for your immediate political gain, are we going to ever move away from that kind of politics, in your opinion?
I think it's difficult at this stage of time. The Cipher controversy, this case at this stage of time is quite serious for Imran Khan, and I don't see any relief for PTI even in the coming month. But yes, it's good that we are discussing. All political parties should come on the single table. And your question to Niaz Sahab, you were asking that how Imran Khan can write from the jail a convicted person for Financial Times. You are asking this. I understood your question, but I want to respond this, that the caretakers also showed their reaction. The government of Pakistan wrote to Financial Times management editorial team that how they made it possible, but it happened. And secondly, in my perspective as a student of democracy or politics, I think Pakistan cannot afford three political parties parallel having equal following in the country. The dwindling democracy, it looks at this stage of time that perhaps one party has to go down. Could have contest, but I don't know what would happen to rehabilitation, reconstruction, or recovery to PTI.
But Zahid Sahab, we are looking at more, you're saying that we can't do with three major political parties. Of course, new political parties have also sprouted.
Yes, it's true. 17 political parties are in in the parliament once here, but quite polarization stand here. I don't see that the top tier leadership of all political parties, particularly the three parties, would come on a single table to discuss how to articulate and set the pattern for upcoming election. We don't have time. Only 31 days to go. At least people are expecting that election would happen, and that's what the country wants at this stage of time. Situation is not encouraging, quite worrying. Even though,
what about the former Prime Minister is not, of course he is currently in jail. Do you think that there's a chance that this, the other leadership of the PTI are going to be able to come on the table with the other two major political parties on core issues as far, in the near future? Do you see that happening or no?
Marukh, look, politics is always an art of possibilities, but unfortunately, at this stage of time, even by the elections, I don't see anything because PTI is scattered and it's a top tier or second tier. There is no unity in the party even. And today, Shah Qureshi, the vice president, his nomination papers were rejected, his appeals were rejected. And all eye beyond Supreme Court of Pakistan. And number one, that either bat the election symbol of PTI would be in the elections. This is very crucial decision. Otherwise, I see as a journalist that more than 50 independent journalists this time, independent, the member National Assembly would qualify for the parliament this time. And these independent member National Assembly would play a vital role, and I see and I could predict even as a journalist that two political parties would try to woo them. Even Pakistan People's Party would be in a better position. It looks at this stage of time that to grab 30 or 35 member National Assembly who would be elected from their constituencies because as an independent candidate. So it looks like there are many ifs and buts. Even
within the PTI itself, there are issues. We've seen rifts erupting in the absence of the former chairman of PTI. There are a lot of issues within the party. There's also the question of preparedness. There's also the question of disorganization. So all of those are challenges that the party itself faces that other parties have also faced not very long ago. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. But then I guess it's understandable given what it's gone through. The top leadership is in jail, so many people have left. But then, other parties are also facing it to some extent, like PMLN, there are dissenting voices, 3 or 4 top leaders like Shahid Khan Abbasi, Miftah Ismail, now even Mohammad Zubair, even after the return of Mia Mohammad Nawaz Sharif. So, when the parties are so big, you do expect, some differences of opinion. And in PTI's case, obviously, there are good reasons to understand. But of course, a PTI, even when it was not facing such a crackdown, it was never a very cohesive party. There were always people, jumping around and, a lot of, controversies within the parties. And Imran Khan had to put his foot down.
But isn't it true that because it itself was an amalgam of so many different people from so many different political parties? As far as the PTI is concerned?
See, Marukh, when any party comes to power, it becomes magnet for people who are power hungry to join them. It has happened in past. We can look at PPP, we can look at PMLN. And once when the reign ends, the people who just jumped the boat to ride, they just leave. It's common. Unfortunately, about the elections, I would just want to add one thing. Does PTI has the voters in their favor or not? It's another debatable topic. It's a favorite party, maybe, maybe not. But what's more important is they don't have people on ground to organize people on the election day. 8th February, they would need people over there on ground to manage things. That is something which will dent PTI this time. They might be looking to get good seats, but they would lose good proportion of it just because of not having people who have experience, who can actually gather crowd, take them to vote, organize them. This is where they would lack.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Faraz Ali Khan, thank you for joining us. Dr. Niaz Murtaza, thank you for being with us. Zahid Ghiskori Saab, thank you for joining us today. Overall, of course, we will know what happens on, a month from now. But the question is, Pakistan needs the kind of visionary leadership that is prepared to look beyond their own political interests to the interests of the state, and that is prepared to look at long-term goals like reform, at the behest, judicial reform, at the behest of which all political parties have been from time to time, economic reform, which we are looking at, the results of which the economic upheaval that we have seen are right in front of us. So that kind of visionary leadership is what we should all be looking for in the next elections. Let's hope that we can get the kind of leadership that will steer Pakistan in that direction. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.